Hey everybody, welcome back to Choices Not Chances, and we got an interesting talk going on tonight. If you haven't caught the previous episode with Mr. Rick Greene, we go into Russia, we go into Ukraine, we go into a lot of different topics in that episode. Go back, type in Rick Greene, Choices Not Chances, find that episode. Watch it if you haven't watched it yet. If you have, then you know what you got coming. If you just don't want to do that just yet, here's a brief bio for Rick. He's in the Army from 1981 to 2007. Spent 15 years of that deployed. He retired out of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow after a couple of different tours there. He did multiple tours in Germany. He's a Russian and Eurasian specialist. He saw combat in 1983 in Grenada for the first time. A man with a wealth of knowledge. And we're just going to have a chat. We're going to have a chat about multiple things, the state of the world, how we got here, and then we're going to talk about Georgia and how we got here. Let's set up some context from Georgia, from Russia, from his time working for the UN, and what he did, what he experienced along the way, and maybe we can take some lessons learned from then, kind of apply it to our world today, and see maybe a better route forward, maybe a different route forward, and maybe not. Just talking about lessons from the past. So, Rick, thanks for coming on again.
My pleasure.
And doing me that service, friendship of what you're doing.
We're definitely friends, right?
If you can move just this way, that would help me and the people see you.
Okay.
I should have done that beforehand. But yes, always love our talks. It doesn't really matter if we're talking about VFW, like chats about how to make things better over there. If we're talking about Georgia, if we're talking about Russia, the state of the world, I always learn. And now I want to, again, bring that back to some people. So let's just talk first about the state of the world. I know the last time, it's been over a year since we had our first chat about the invasion of Russia into Ukraine and how that would pan out. Things have changed since then, and it's gone on longer than either one of us maybe expected since then. So let's just kind of break down where we're at as far as you see it, and we'll wrap on that for a minute, and then we'll move on off of that playbook into Georgia, and just kind of as you see fit, fill me in where I'm missing things, if that works out.
No, that's great. I think probably the first thing we need to do is recognize and send our thoughts and prayers out to all the service members that are deployed into harm's way, be it in the Middle East right now, or in the European theater, or even in our own backyard in Western North Carolina, in support of relief and recovery efforts for Hurricane Helene. There's a lot of folks. There's a lot of Americans that are hurting right now, and we have a lot of service members that are trying to help.
Yeah.
And it just proves the point that there are trouble spots all over, and the U.S. and its capabilities are sought after to help rectify those issues and those hot spots. We start at the Kremlin playbook. If you want to talk about what's happening in at least the European theater, and probably in the Middle East theater as well. I mean, the Russians are playing a role there. But the basic tenet in the Russian playbook is to deflect. When you've got troubles at home, and Putin's got plenty of troubles at home, then you stir up the periphery. All right, you look for ways to create flashpoints, wherever they are. In this particular case, in Georgia in the early 1990s, it happened to be in Abkhazia, and the Kremlin saw fit to intervene and interfere into a Georgian problem, and just created havoc for decades in that region. But whenever the Kremlin or Putin gets in trouble, they whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Armenia, Georgia, it doesn't make any difference. Whether it's U.S. Election interference, they push out as far as they can and try to make sure that their population has other things to worry about other than what's really happening behind the Kremlin walls.
Is that much different than what we do?
No, I mean
It's not, right?
you could argue. I mean, if you watch the movie, was it Wag the Dog?
Okay.
It talks about spin. Spin. There's a good book, and I've got some other books I want to ping too.
Absolutely.
There's a good book that's called. I just got it. It's called. It came out last year. It's called Spin Dictators. So it's how dictators, primarily from North Korea, Russia, at least those two, are using social media and using the internet to spin their stories. I mean, it's a take on spin doctors, but this is spin dictators. It's good. It's a good book. It's worth a read.
Yeah, it seems like all of the powers seem to do a bit of that, if not a lot of that. So
the Kremlin playbook is that is a fundamental, though. As soon as something happens within Russia proper, they find a way to redirect attention. I mean, it's happened ever since. I mean, I can recall, and if you look, historians will tell you that it's been happening for centuries. So,
classic. Okay.
I want to plug real quick.
Yeah, please.
The Honor Foundation. I'm a coach. One of the best things I've ever done. It's very rewarding, and it's a great organization. If you get a chance to get involved, please do.
Tell people what they do.
They assist transitioning special operators in every service. The one that I'm involved with here in Sneads Ferry and in Wilmington area, and this on the North Carolina southeast coast, it's primarily Marine Raiders coming from Camp Lejeune, but it can be anybody, and they walk them through networking, your LinkedIn account, your resume. They do on-site workshops. It's a 3-month course. They run 4 a year, and it's phenomenal. Yeah. The preparation that these guys go through to dress for success, including that. Yeah. They are, first of all, it's a uber confident group anyways. So it's just a fantastic group to be associated with, transitioning special operators. But the preparation that the Honor Foundation does for them, they walk into some really solid positions and set themselves up for a quality of life that they deserve.
Yeah,
it's a great organization. Honor.org. It's just great.
Honor.org, and I'm going to echo that with Rick right now and say that we've had Sean Carano, one of the directors, on. We've had Dave Pluris on. I've talked to multiple of these people, and when I think about where do I want to put my money as a way to aid and support the transition veteran community, that's where I want to put my money. Those are the people I want to put my money with, and that's what I want to support. As that thing grows out and that business plan gets pushed out to other services and other factions within the services, it's only going to do better for our community. It's going to be a net positive to everybody around it.
Absolutely.
So you taking your time and every other every other person donating their time, giving freely of their time to see success from that community is above admirable to me. So
as a coach, you get a fellow every session. You get one, and you walk him or her through the process. See if they have any questions along the way. You're just a a morale boost and a confidence builder.
A mentor in a
Yep,
way,
yep.
if not
Absolutely.
all the way, a
Yeah,
mentor.
business
So,
mentor,
yeah.
military transition mentor, just life
Another
lessons.
thing you guys are getting them into is a vast network of good, successful people.
Oh, yeah,
and people
before
underestimate the network.
Yeah, before they leave, they are in contact with hundreds of people, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, best part about it for you.
For me, it's seeing how capable our forces are. And granted, it's special operators, so they are special for a reason. But it's just one part of how great our services are.
Yeah.
And for me to have been out for retired 17 years and still see that capacity and that capability, it's just there's nobody fights like us, and I know why.
Yep.
I mean, it's great.
Yeah, we have great people. I always said that the Marine Corps, and that's not just the Marine Corps, but the military, and especially in my opinion, the combat guys, are a microcosm of the greatest Americans that we have.
Oh, I agree.
And that's what it is. So
That's absolutely. Services mirror the society.
yeah, right on. Okay, so Kremlin playbook, we kind of cover that. Let's cover Russia where it stands now, because I'm probably not as read in as I want to be about that specific topic. I stayed very read into it recently. I've had we've done a lot of training over on Lejeune and Geiger for the Marines over there, and I've just kind of kept my head down and stayed kind of out of it, outside of what you email me with updates. And I'm like, all right, time for another talk. So where we stand right now, let's start with Russian interior, Kremlin, and oligarchs that may be affected by some of Putin's decisions. It seemed to me that 6 months ago or more, it started to kind of put a squeeze on some of his support there. Is that still the case?
I would say yes. I think he's probably gotten a handle on that over the last. We're coming up on 3 years in February that he's invaded Ukraine. So there were some rough spots. Obviously, I think he's probably got a handle on that. But Russian economy is a shadow of what it was, 5 years ago. So I think he's in trouble. I think he knows he's in trouble. That's why he's probably shrunk his circle and tightened it and tightened his security. I'm not sure what oligarchs he can really claim to be still in his camp, 100%. So we could easily see, I think, some major muscle movements in the Kremlin in the next 6 months, certainly next 6 to 12 months.
I thought big things were going to happen, positive things for the rest of the world when Wagner turned around and started to make a move up, and then that got handled out.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And you saw how he handled that.
Yeah, with a bottle of wine, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't wine.
Yeah, I mean, it was an assassination.
Yeah, I heard he did it with a crate of wine, of his favorite wine.
It probably was. Yeah. That is one of the stories that's going around.
And it seems like, I'm no Putin expert like yourself, but it seems like in a way in which he would do it.
Yeah, no.
It seems exactly like what he would do. And that's not funny, except for, in my opinion, fuck that guy. So I know he was probably going to help things by trying to take Putin out or whatever. I don't think it would have helped anything.
Yeah,
Just been a new snakehead.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much help it was gonna do, but it did change the way Russia conducts the war. I mean, there's no, and internationally as well. So
now, is Wagner still up under somebody else, or did it all kind of collapse after that?
No, as far as I know, at least officially, it's collapsed.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some units that were kept as cohorts together.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, and they are probably elsewhere. They may not be in Ukraine. They may be in other countries.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, I think it's dissolved and has been incorporated into other parts of the Russian armed forces.
Sure. Check. Um, the Russian economy, you mentioned that it's a shadow of what it was 5 to 10 years ago. I wrote a paper, at least that long ago for college, talking about how sanctions didn't work against Russia anymore because they had built up a resiliency to sanctions, as well as the help they're getting from other countries, i.e., China, specifically, feel like they're propping the ruble up. How does that look?
Um, you can easily argue that sanctions were not as effective as we would have liked them to be. But I mean, he had 15 years to understand, how we operate as far as economic sanctions are concerned, and you can pad the areas that you need to pad to get ready for those types of sanctions to take effect, and you can start building those partnerships, like you said, to ease the pain. And he did that. The sanctions work, and you got to keep doing them. I mean, it's just one of those sticks that we have, and you need to use. I mean, the alternative is put boots on the ground.
Yeah,
and you never want to do that. Yeah. Okay, so keep using the sticks that you have, and sanctions are among them, and it is having the desired effect on the Russian economy. It's some of those effects are muted because they've had so much time to prepare for potential effects, but they're still working. So I mean, it's you can't not have sanctions.
Is sanctions our only diplomacy right now?
No. I mean, we have we do put pressure on China. Mm-hmm. We put pressure on other partners that Russia might have to include North Korea.
Would that include Belarus?
Yes. Belarus and Russia have a historical partnership. I mean, it's not just a social economic partnership that they have, and they've had that for century. Anyways, yeah. Yes, I would guess that we do have ways of making sure that Lukashenko, president of Belarus, understands that certain coordination with the Russian Federation are probably not in his best interest. Mm-hmm. So yeah, mm-hmm. no. The diplomatic corps is definitely a tool that is effective and efficient, and we'd be in a lot more dire straits than we are now without them.
See, and I guess the reason I ask is, again, you got to kind of pick out from the propaganda what you believe and what you don't, and what you think is real and what you don't think is real. But it seemed to me that when this, from the reporting on TV as well as some of the stuff I'm looking up, it seemed to me that when the United States, and I think it was, I don't know if it was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, and really it doesn't matter which one it was, they're speaking for the United States. It didn't seem to me like they wanted to talk to Putin. It seemed to me that they went to Volodymyr Zelensky and said, what do you need? What can we do? How can we help? And it didn't seem like anybody picked the phone up and called Vladimir Putin and said, hey, we need to resolve this issue. I want to bring all parties to the table and work this out in a way that's not going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. It didn't seem like we did that to me. And like you mentioned before, as far as the Republican side and the and the Democrat side, and when one's in power, there's an enemy, a common enemy that we always know about, and when the other one's in power, Russia's the enemy. So I don't know if that pans out, but that's what it looks like to a lot of lay people like myself.
Yeah, I mean, no, Russia's, for the most part, you can argue in World War II that we were allies, but other than that, there's just small windows where we really have coordinated and cooperated as peers or near peers. I don't think we'll ever see, certainly not as long as Putin's in charge, Russia and America as allies again. And the reason that we don't see the current administration picking up the phone and talking to Moscow, the Kremlin, or even Putin himself, is I'm certain it's happening. I mean, we have a direct phone that goes from the capital region into Moscow, the Molink, and I'm certain that happens. It's not often president to president. Even if it was, we might not know about it. But he's a pariah now, Putin.
We consider him a pariah state now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, it's not going to be front and center. We're going to talk to the victim in all this, Ukraine and Zelensky and Europe. So the fact that the current administration doesn't talk to, we don't see them talking to, leaders in the Kremlin. There's a lot of good reasons for it. You don't want to elevate him to that stature. I mean, just like you don't want to talk about North Korea, you do have to talk about China. You do have to talk up to the Chinese leadership. But that doesn't mean that you have to put Putin on the same par as a Chinese leader. You're certainly not going to put the Korean leader on the same level. So I'm not surprised that we don't see a lot of evening news that covers U.S. and Russian negotiations. First of all, it's not. I mean, that's a Ukrainian negotiation. It's not necessarily a U.S. Negotiation. We're definitely knee deep, if not neck deep. So we have skin in the game, and we're protecting that skin. Absolutely. But this is a problem that needs to be solved between Ukraine and Russia primarily, and then Europe and Russia, and then NATO and Russia, and then eventually America and Russia. But it is in the forefront is definitely a Ukrainian-Russian question.
Yeah. The thing I worry about is the amount of arms we're sending, and not that I worry, but that makes me. If I try to turn the map around, and if I'm Putin and I'm looking at the law of armed conflict, I'm looking at my country, I'm looking at a lot of people dying, and then I look and I say, well, where are all the weapons coming from that are killing my people? Well, it's like these 5 places. And can he take that as an act of war and say, no, I'm going to cut off the supply train and pick one of 5 countries that are giving them jets and laws and everything that they're getting? I start playing that in my head. I'm like, well, if we were the United States and people were coming and attacking us and they were getting weapons from Mexico, I'm pretty certain we would bomb those places. I'm pretty certain we would. And so now if I'm Russia, do I say, okay, now I bomb, Tesla headquarters as long as Elon Musk is there because they're providing key communication assets to the enemy that are now pushing into my country? Do I bomb somewhere in the United States that's manufacturing weapons that are being sent? That's where I start thinking, and I don't know the law of armed conflict well enough to know if that falls as illegal or legal, and I don't know that I believe that they care if it's legal or not legal. Everywhere I've ever been to fight, people didn't follow those rules. Only we did. And so I have a hard time believing that Vladimir Putin's going to follow them.
It's he wakes up every morning and does a math problem. He absolutely does, and he knows the current situation it does not look good for him. If he thought those were legitimate responses, he'd have done them a long time ago. But he knows they're not. He cannot survive those types of counter efforts or those types of responses to the things that you just described. he doesn't have the same sticks. He certainly does. He has no carrots.
Yeah.
He has no carrots.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the same sticks that we have, so he cannot influence our allies, the group of 30 some countries that we've put together arrayed against him, and he knows that. I mean, it's getting. I think it's getting very tenuous for him.
Let me ask you this question, and this, if you don't want to answer, you don't want to go into this hole, it's fine with me. Okay. The current administration, the last administration, last two administrations, call it however far back you want it, Russia didn't deploy an offensive. He took Crimea, was that 14?
Yes, it did in 14, but it's every administration has had to deal with Russian aggression. So that thesis, I think, I wouldn't agree with.
Russian aggression, but not an all-out invasion in a 3-year war.
Those you just added qualifiers on a lot of that stuff. They have invaded. They invaded Georgia in 1992. They invaded in 2008. They invaded in 2014.
Yeah.
The Ukraine. All of its neighbors have been subjected. They have troops in Moldova right now, in Transnistria. Okay, they have troops in South Ossetia, in part of Georgia, which is in the north eastern part of Georgia. One of the other autonomous areas like Abkhazia that we're going to talk about shortly. So, yeah, I couldn't agree that this administration had anything to do with Russia's aggression into Ukraine. Russia's been an aggressor in Europe my whole life. Okay. All right. Again, there were windows, and when I was there, right after 2001, the counterterrorism cooperation that we had was solid, was really, really good and genuine. That was short-lived. I mean, but there are cooperative threat reduction to reduce nuclear, biological, chemical precursors, weapon systems, extremely effective program. All right, $10 billion, 10 countries over 10 years to help destroy or store or secure, to make as safe as possible their nuclear arsenal and their biological precursors that they had under the and chemical weapons convention.
Novichok agents.
And yeah. So there's just there's a lot of good work that was done, and that you can't do that without some solid cooperation. The INF, nuclear forces, intermediate nuclear forces agreement. Most of the stuff they've walked away from, but that was money well spent. While we were there, you can go online and find the scorecard, CTR scorecard, to see what we did. The ballistic submarines that we scrapped, the tanks that we cut up, the missiles that we cut up. Yeah, it was an extremely effective program. Great cooperation with the Russian Federation on something like that. We don't have that now. But those systems have been destroyed. First of all, and second of all, they're still being secured. So
by who? Secured by who?
By the Russian Federation. Different ministries within the Russian Federation. I mean, there used to be treaties in place that we would, they would check us and we would check them, but we don't have those regimes in place anymore. Doesn't mean we couldn't if Putin is replaced. Doesn't mean that we couldn't start those right back up again. And that makes the world a lot safer.
Yeah. Going back a little bit, what do you say to somebody who is a Russian sympathizer that says Russia tried to join NATO back in the day and they weren't allowed?
Well, I've been accused of being a Russophile.
You told me.
Yeah, and I'm not. The story that I told before was I'm a Blairophile and I'm a Taylorophile. Those are my two sons, 30 and 36. And anything I can do to make this world safer for them, I'm going to do. So if it means that I need to learn as much as I can about a near peer to ensure that if I can help in any way I can, I'm going to do that. So that makes me a Russophile, and so be it.
Right.
So there's a couple of books here that are worth looking into on that particular note. All right, this one by Surratt, Not 1 Inch, is a little bit of a play on words, where Putin said, "I'm not giving up 1 more inch of former Soviet territory to NATO," and NATO said, "You know what? You're not taking back. We're not giving up 1 more inch of sovereign territory to the Russian Federation. It's not happening." So it's an excellent book. The book that goes alongside with that in context is this one right here, Open Door. All right, it's NATO and the Euro-Atlantic Security After the Cold War. Another really, really textbook-like, but still great, a great read and great context on Russia and NATO. Russia was never, I don't believe, a legitimate candidate for NATO membership. There's always been a framework to ensure that NATO's interests were not ignored. Okay, they always had a voice. They usually didn't get a vote. I mean, they get a vote. They get a veto in the UN Security Council. But as far as NATO is concerned, you don't want to ignore them. Absolutely can't ignore them. You see what happens if you let them, run rampant through Europe. But yeah, they can be a partner. They can't now. They can't until Putin, the current Kremlin administration, has been rearranged. All right, it's just that they're not. That's not one of the Kremlin's goals right now, is to be a partner with NATO.
Why were they originally told no?
I don't know. I don't think Russia was ever serious about because there are. First of all, I don't know if they were ever told no.
Okay.
But the qualifications for NATO, they couldn't meet, and they didn't want to meet. All right, they didn't want to. Their goal was to stop expansion. All right, and the handwriting was on the wall. They were pretty sure the Baltic states were going to be members. They were pretty sure a lot of Eastern European countries, after the wall came down, were going to be members of NATO. So their goal was to blunt that expansion. Their goal was not to be a partner with NATO. I hope we can get back to a point where NATO and Russia, have seats at the same table, and we can talk about security in Europe.
Yeah, God willing. There's a lot of people dying. I don't think a lot of Americans anyway know the extent of how savage that is over there. I watched a vacuum bomb get dropped recently, and it was somewhere in Kharkiv. I might be saying that wrong. I think that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, and dude, it looked devastating. It's not nuclear, but thermobaric, I think.
Yeah.
No? Yeah, thermobaric.
Yeah.
And
they shouldn't be used, but they are being used.
They're being used, yeah. And when I seen that, and it's like, now I know we dropped a lot of bombs, we dropped a lot of ordnance, we fly a lot of, I'm not saying we're...
The way we conduct war is completely different from the way the Russians conduct war. It's
Fact.
not even worth
I'm
putting
talking
in
about
the same sentence.
Yeah, I'm talking about ammo and stuff. I know they're a whole lot different on their rules and their what their guys are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. But as far as just watching that bomb, I've seen a lot of bombs go off. I've seen the JDAMs and the 2,000 pounders. This thing went off and it shook dust off of the entire city. And it was a big city. And it's like, if there was anybody in that city, they're hurt at least, or at least in that immediate zone. Like it's huge shock blast wave goes out, windows blow out of everything, and it's like when that kind of ordinance is being dropped, people don't understand what that does to the other side of the world. Like our people don't understand that.
You're right. You're right.
We don't have the resiliency, and I don't think we even have. Seemingly, most people don't even have the care. It's like out of sight, out of mind over there, and doesn't really affect my daily life. But for people that have been there and know or lived there and have ties there, that whole thing rings different, at least to me. So, yeah, brutal. Let's go to Georgia. I know that we have, correct me if I'm wrong, 30th anniversary
of my initial deployment
of your
as
initial
the first
deployment.
American on the ground in the Georgian Abkhaz Civil War.
Yep.
Monitoring the ceasefire is coming up October. It's just this month. It's
right now, yeah.
94. So it's 30 years. It doesn't seem like that long, and I still have contacts in Georgia. They're in their 50s, now, and they all say the same thing. Rick, don't tell me it's 30 years. But I don't want to remember that it was that long ago. It makes me feel old. So we don't. I don't dwell on the fact that it's the 30th anniversary, but it is. The U.S. entered into support for United Nations Observer Mission in Georgia, UNAMIG, in October of 1994. Two of us were deployed as the initial representatives. 4 sectors, and I'll show you on the map here
Sure.
in just a second. And very unstable. That's why it took about 13 months to get the first 2 Americans on the ground. They established a headquarters in '92, and it took us late '92, and it took us until middle of '94 to say yes. We'll summer of '94 they said yes. We'll put somebody on the ground, and it was just too unstable for us. The administration, Clinton administration, was working to get as much visibility on the problem as they could, but the last thing they wanted to do was send somebody into an environment like that without knowing. Mm-hmm. Still very unstable by the time we got on the ground, but 2 of us deployed. We both did bios. One of us had just came out of back-to-back division assignments, one out of Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, and then Fort Drum, Light Infantry Division out of Fort Drum. And then the other one, great officer, just fit right in perfectly. But he had just come from Wright Pat, and so he was from a different world than I was, coming from the 2 divisions. And so when the United Nations leadership took a look at the 2 bios, one of them had to stay at headquarters in Pitsunda, just south of Sochi, and the other one got sent down the line of demarcation on the Inguri River. And it was the guy that had spent back-to-back division tours that got sent down into the DMZ, and the other officer was sent up to headquarters. And I did 6 months down on the Inguri River.
Now, I want to understand how you get selected for this job.
Okay.
There's 2 of you.
Yeah, I can't.
So not a big pool of people that you're going to...
Well, no, because the criteria, and I found out this afterwards, the criteria was field grade and Russian speakers. All right. So
check.
I get a call. I'm the Deputy Provost Marshal at the 2nd Armored Division at Fort Hood, Texas. 8 months short of going to Command and General Staff College at Leavenworth. All right, so I know that's my next assignment. I know that's where I'm going to go. I'm just, it's a great job. The Deputy PM and the PM whenever the PM's not there. I mean, it's just a great armored division, and it was a great position. I loved it the whole time that I was there. So I wasn't looking forward to leaving, other than the fact that I knew it was progressive. I had to go to Command and General Staff College, and I get a phone call. It says, "Hey, you need to come down to 3rd Corps." headquarters, and there's a message that you need to read. I said, okay. So to get to your point of how this happens, I go down. It's a corps tasker that came down to the division, and it's to send a field grade Russian speaker to the Abkhazia Georgian Civil War. I have to volunteer for it because it's hazardous duty. They had no idea what it was. They just assumed it was hazardous duty, and it was. I mean, Georgians are killing the Russians, the Georgians are killing the Abkhaz are killing the Georgians. The Russians have mined everywhere and not told anybody where anything is. Militia on both sides that are uncontrolled. I mean, it's just.
Are you getting this in your report before you volunteer, or is this
Oh,
something you
hell
found
no.
out?
Once I got there. I mean, every male had an AK-47,
Yeah.
and every male was drunk.
Oh, good.
It was a disaster.
Oh boy.
So no, I read it. I read the message. It's at least a 6-month deployment, and extremely austere conditions. Let alone the fact that you're the only one on the ground.
Yeah, that's already uncomfortable to me.
Yes, but I mean, Army trains as fails. Marine Corps does a really good job with his fails too.
Yeah.
To do just that, to operate independently.
Yeah.
So I said E6. That's the taskmaster, and he said, "What do you think, sir?" I said, "Yeah. I mean, they're looking for a Russian speaker. That's what I do. It gets me right back into tip of the spear. It'd been 10 years since I had my initial combat operations. I said that's what soldiers do. I want to do this. I said, but I got to check. I got a 3-month-old and I got a 6-year-old at home, and I got to check with my wife. She knows I go, but we got to talk about this. I said, what happens if I say no? He said, hey, sir, you can say no. This is not something that a lot of people are going to say yes to. He said, you can say no. He said, but if you say no, I got to go back up to the 3-star, the Corps commander, and let him know that the 2nd Armored Division had a candidate, but he chose not to volunteer. And it has to go back up to big, to Big Army in the Corps, as a Corps tasker that we couldn't fill. I'm not going to tell you that it's not a bad thing. I mean, the 2-star in the Jerry Bates was the 2-star commander for the 2nd Armored Division at the time, and I think Funk was the 3-star. And I said, there's going to be some multiple star discussions going on here if we can't fill this. And nobody's going to think ill of Major Greene, but they're going to want to know what the hell. I said, well, how many? First of all, this is 2nd Armored Division, 3rd Corps. How big? You know how big this place is? It's huge. Okay. How many field grade Russian speakers are there in 3rd Corps? 1, sir. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, that's it. You're it. So if you say no, we have to send the tasker back. And I said, well, all right. I mean,
so really, this is orders, not asked.
Yeah. So I'm a soldier. I'm not going to turn down orders like this. I'm certainly not going to let my division commander have to go up in front of the Corps commander and say, this guy didn't want to do his job.
Yeah.
All right. So I went back and talked to my wife. We decided it would be the best in the best interest of the mission and what I was doing for a career to do that. Now the price. I mean, I'm certain you had similar experiences. I left a 3-month-old. I came back. He was 9 months old. He would not come to me. I reached out to him the first night back, and he just cowered back into his mother's arms. And he would not. He didn't know who I was. So I mean, that's the cost. So that's how it happened.
How shortly after that were you in transit?
Well, they send you to John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center for some anti-terrorism type preparation. And I was there for a couple of weeks at Bragg, now Liberty. And then grabbed my 2 duffels, got on an airplane, and
off you go.
Yep. off I went. Flew into Sochi, Russia first. UN vehicle. I got my beret right here. This is what we wore, along with the blue helmets.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not thought of, as being real sexy, but I'm telling you, one, it's a beret, so berets are sexy. And two, this is a legit mission, and a lot of these UN missions are just that. They do the peacekeeping missions. They do what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Now,
of them
is your TACCOM under them when you're gone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, as much as any U.S. forces are. All right, so there's a UN hierarchy. There was, like I said, there were 4 sectors in Western Georgia, in Abkhazia itself. I was down here in Gali, right on the border. The Nguri River is the border, and so I lived in a safe house in Gali for 6 months. Last 3 weeks, the other guy said, "Hey, been sucking up all this DMZ time. You need to come up here to headquarters and swap with me." I almost said his name. I'm not going to say his name, but I said, I don't want to do that. First of all,
I think I'll pass.
I don't want to go to Pitsunda. All right.
Where was the headquarters at?
In Pitsunda.
Oh yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
All right. Right on. I mean,
A little further up.
yeah, we're just across the border from Sochi, Russia. So beautiful place. You got the Black Sea to your left, and to your right, you got the snow-capped Caucasus Mountains. There's places in California you can do that, but not very many, where you can see, a beach on one side, mountains on the other side.
Sure, yeah.
Beautiful place. Gutted, okay, but the headquarters had the best quality of life. The quality of life I had was
Shit.
the safe house did the best that they could, but
No, you could call it what it is. It wasn't comfortable.
no, it was very uncomfortable. And Russians closed the northern border on us. The Georgians closed the southern border. All right, so southern border, northern border. We had to fend for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I would go to the market because I spoke Russian. There were only 4 in the sector that spoke Russian. So I picked the safe house that was closest to the sector headquarters, so I could walk to work because I knew 24/7 somebody was going to call because I was a Russian speaker. So I said, "You're not coming to get me. I'm not getting in a car. I'm walking to work." So I walked downhill, go to the sector headquarters, all hours, whenever they called, whenever they needed. But when the Russians closed the northern border and the Georgians closed the southern border, we had nothing but what they grew. In a civil war, you've been in civil wars. The first thing you smell when you walk in, it doesn't matter. I can close my eyes and walk into the middle of civil war, and the smell is the same. It's burning garbage because services stop. And you got to burn the garbage. All right. So you smell burning garbage. That's the first thing you smell. The second thing you see is livestock because nobody's tending to it. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
So it is. So there were people that were still butchering. Very few because there were no males of combatant age in my sector. They're all chased out. But there were still people that were harvesting certain things, and they were certainly, slaughtering farm animals as well.
Sure.
Very, very few. But there was a market in Gali, my sector headquarters. There was a sector across the river in Georgia, and 2 to the north of where I was.
Okay.
But the infrastructure was all shot up. Bridges were out. It was very primitive. But the markets were, I would bring back meat from the market, best cut I could find. And I can remember bringing back a spine almost, and neck, pieces, and the Hazaika, the woman that ran the house for us, basically.
Was there more than just you in the house?
Yeah.
You said us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got there late. I mean, but first of all, let me finish. She couldn't do anything with meat. Rick, I don't even know what this is. All right, so I can't prepare this. I said sometimes I can identify if it's pork or beef or lamb, but in this particular case, so I ate a lot of cheese and a lot of eggs. All right, because meat was very, very difficult.
Chickens were plentiful.
Chickens were plentiful, but that's another great story. I'm not going to say her name, but the house owner who managed the safe house from a keeping it clean, keeping the lights running. The kitchen, it wasn't much of a kitchen, but she served us meals. Okay. So I wake up in the morning, I get breakfast. She'd give me a bag lunch for my day, and I come back and have some sort of a dinner. But she comes walking up from the market one day, and I see her hanging on to the feet of chicken, because the chicken upside down is going to just hang there.
It's hang there.
Yeah. And so I say, "We having chicken tonight?" She said, "No, silly boy. Says, we're going to have eggs." So she had like 2 in each hand, and she put them right outside of my door. She put me outside of the kitchen. Kitchen was the only door that locked. And I had a little closet, literally 4 by 6 or 7, small, really small. I had a wardrobe to hang my uniforms in. I had a single bed that I slept in my sleeping bag basically on it, because it was the coldest winter that they had in those areas. They actually got 4 feet of snow, and it never snows on the Black Sea like that. But it was a terrible winter.
Picked a good one.
Yeah. But so she put these chickens and one rooster in this dead tree in the courtyard in behind the house. And they roosted up there. So every morning, as soon as the sun came up, man, that thing was just rocking back there. And as I was getting up, it didn't matter if I had just got to bed or not. Those chickens were going to, and that rooster were going to wake me up. Yeah. And I can remember one night, or one morning, eating breakfast, and I went in. I said, "Oh, man, yes, kakawiti." I slept like the dead, because I mean, pistol whipped. And she says, "Stop. Don't you ever do that again. Don't you ever tell me you slept like that. I'm counting on you being out there as my first line of defense. I don't want to hear you saying that you snored your night away and you were that deep asleep where you wouldn't have heard somebody trying to break in that door. That's you're out there. So don't tell me that.
You're my safety.
Even if you did that, don't tell me." So I never did.
Was she cheeky about it, or was she serious?
No, she was serious. She was a Mingrelka from Mingrelia. That's that area right there in southern Abkhazia.
Okay.
She obviously spoke Georgian.
Georgian.
She was economist by trade, so she spoke Russian as well. So that's the way we communicated.
Sure.
By in Russian. And her husband was a lawyer. He passed like 3 months before the initial wave of Georgians came across the Abkhaz border in 1992, and he was buried in Gali, so she wouldn't leave. Every Thursday she went to see him every Thursday, and I had to go to a well to get water every day. In the wintertime, I had to actually break the ice to get to the water. That's how cold it was. But I bathed in a little immersion heater, a Kapitelnik, a coil immersion heater.
Yep.
I put that in a little bucket. I get in the tub. We didn't have any running water. I mean, it was gutted. Those guys came through.
Now, I want to talk about that too. Finish your bathing story.
Yeah, okay, real quick. So I'd sit in the tub with this bucket of heated water. It didn't, and it was cold. I mean, you can see your breath. And I mean, just ladle the water, lather up as much as you can, ladle it off. All right, so I'm in this little room, toasty. My body heat is heating this little room. I got a little window. I have to open it up sometimes.
Okay.
Because it's comfortable. The other 2 occupants in the house got there before I did, probably 6 months before I did.
A little better setup.
They chose. It depends on what you describe as better. They chose the 2 biggest rooms that they could find upstairs.
And they were cold.
Froze their butts off. Better, they were both Cubans.
Oh my God.
All right, so they had no idea what cold weather was. A major and a captain. My Spanish got me by. My Russian, one of the one of them spoke Russian because he went to school in Russia. Actually, had twin daughters still in Moscow. The captain. So he and I, Ramon and Arnaldo. Arnaldo spoke Russian. So he and I communicated in Russian, and I would listen to, and we would converse, Ramon and I occasionally, but he wasn't much of a talker, anyways. But first of all, U.S. we have no relations with Cuba. Russian or U.S. and American and Cuban officers do not cooperate with each other, let alone live together. And I did for 6 months with these two guys, and so they took the two biggest rooms up there. Some of them had glass, some of them didn't. None of them had heating until about halfway through the winter, when I worked out a deal with the Russian peacekeeping brigade, the airborne peacekeeping brigade, to bring fuel and a couple of spare parts that we were missing. So I had an expert come in, tell me what the Sistema Oteplenia, which is the heating system, it was oil. And they took the most expensive parts out of it when they ransacked the area, but we fixed it. And we finally got oil heat halfway through the winter.
I bet she was grateful for that.
She was. But she heated the kitchen with the gas stove, okay. So she had some heat in there, and she kept it all closed up until we went in there to eat. But those two guys up there, hey, Greene, you switch with us? I said, no, you guys, you got the two rooms upstairs. You got
Enjoy.
You're machismo. You got the two biggest rooms up there. You keep them. Yeah. I'll keep this little closet down here. Yeah. But it was tough for a couple of months, and then I'm a baseball fanatic, and I knew the Cuban leagues a little bit. I knew Linares and a couple of the big baseball names, so they would be reading newspapers from Havana, and I would say, hey, can I look at those? And can I see the the league standings and everything? And so, what do you know about baseball? So we got talking about it, and little by little they came around, and then they found out my favorite ice cream was vanilla, and that's Fidel's favorite. So we were golden.
Perfect. Yeah, keep that up here.
Yeah, we played dominoes on a regular basis. They cheated their butts off, because they whatever code that they were doing in Spanish, I wasn't picking up on.
Right.
And I played with a British submariner. We were really, really good, and we held our own. But every now and then, you could tell that they were cheating.
Cheaters.
That's all right. That's all right. They deserve to win. Yeah, they deserve to win every now and then.
Now, before we go through them going over and back, as we were talking before, I want to touch on that. Where did you learn Russian?
The Army has a great program. It's very similar to the Marine Corps program. The Marine Corps mimicked and mirrored the successes that the Army program has had. So it's a foreign area officer program. It takes you out of the mainstream for 4 years, which can easily cost you. A lot of my peers retired as majors just because they didn't get the opportunity to come out of that training program and go into high-speed positions. I did,
right,
and I got promoted a couple more times.
Right.
They're great officers, they're great leaders. They just they hit a ceiling.
We see this happen everywhere.
Yeah.
You could be the best critical skills operator and never go on the deployment that you get to showcase that.
Yep.
And then you could be a good one and you get an opportunity and you can shine and things happen.
Yeah. So it's a 4-year training program. It was then. It's probably truncated a little bit now, and but it was a year at DLI at Presidio Monterey to learn basic Russian. And then a year and a half at to get an advanced degree in Russian Eurasian Studies. I went to Kansas University.
Okay.
As part of that training, I went to Leningrad State University as well. It's now St. Petersburg University, but it's LGU. And so when I'm talking to Russians, I'll say, Elgeushik, which means I'm a graduate of Leningrad State University. And
Did you go to school there?
yeah, that's, I mean,
Like you were on campus at?
yeah,
How is that different from ours, or is it not at all?
yeah. I mean, it's
Not at all.
it's different. I mean,
it is different.
U.S.
Okay.
Yes, U.S. campuses are some of the best in the world. This campus that I went to was on Vasily's Island, which St. Petersburg is built on a bog and a bunch of islands. So the metro system goes under the water, under the canals to get to the different islands. So my dormitory, Abkhazia, was on an island. So and I'd have to take that the metros to the subway from the dormitory to which was just a high-rise apartment building to onto campus, which was on a completely different island. Yeah, and it was terrible. It was 1990. It was everything was in deficit. Even if you were paying like Westerners were paying, I was paying hard currency, American dollars, to participate in the program to be on campus. So if there was anything to be had, I was going to get it because I had the money. But I lost 17 pounds in the first 3 months, and I was running a lot. I'd run from the dormitory down to the fortress in St. Petersburg, and so probably five miles, you know. And St. Petersburg's second biggest city in Russia. Huge sidewalks, 20 feet wide.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I mean, and so there's plenty of room to run. So, but we weren't eating. I mean, I'd come down to breakfast, and there would be a hot dog, sosiski, a spoonful of peas, and some fairly fresh vegetables, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Lunch we'd have on campus. There was a cafeteria, typical Russian lunches, you know, for students, and then dinner. If we had an event planned during the course, maybe we'd eat halfway decently. If not, I deployed with 2 of the biggest jars of peanut butter I could carry. And fresh bread. I mean, there's fresh bread in Europe and in Russia every morning. You
mean like down the street?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can smell the way they open the windows just as a marketing ploy. So I had plenty of bread. I ate a lot of bread and peanut butter the whole time I was there. But
Is St. Petersburg a beautiful place, or is it not?
it is.
It seemed like it would be.
It's called the Riviera of the North,
Okay.
because it's so far north that you can see Aurora Borealis. They have a time period.
All the time?
No,
Just
not all the
sometimes,
time.
okay.
Yep. They have. It's on the Gulf of Finland.
Okay,
You know, so they have a period of time in late June, early July that's called Biele Noci, which is white nights. I actually put blankets up over the window because the sun went down and back up during that time because it's so far north. I mean, so in order to get some sleep time, I mean, you actually have to black out the sun. So yeah, it is major cities, so there's plenty of food, restaurant opportunities, plenty of great places to stay. It just depends on the Russian economy. Like I said, 1990 was terrible. 94 was even worse under Yeltsin. It was actually still part of the USSR when I was there. So it was. I wouldn't change anything. It was a great experience, but it was rough. What's really cool about it is, 25 years later, my son got a chance to go to the same campus as a cooperative extension program with Clemson University. He graduated from Clemson, and he took a semester and went to the same campus.
No kidding.
That I did, 25 years apart. It's pretty cool.
Now, what program does that?
He minored in Russian, He is a philosophy major.
Okay.
And minored in Russian. Was supposed to be a chem bio major when he got there, and he had his mentor, his campus mentor was a geneticist and doctor, and she said she laid out. I digress, but she laid out the whole 4 years for him because he's biochem. She said, all right here, here's your courses. This is what you're taking. This is when you're going to graduate. This is it. It's pre-med. It's everything you got. And Taylor had gone through the course catalog and said, no, I have a list of electives here. There's like 8 or 9 electives that I'm going to take over the next 4 years, to include, Russian literature, Russian and contemporary politics, whatever, a bunch of stuff. He'd taken French in high school, and the geneticist just looked at him and said, "Can't be biochem. There's no electives in this schedule." He said, "So, well, I guess I'm not biochem." So he made an adult decision that I'm taking these electives. That's what I came here for. I'll work it out. I'll find a major. I'm not worried about it. So he's working right now as a project lead in a urology project in UNC Chapel Hill. So he's doing all right. But he did go to the same campus.
That's really cool. Now you guys can talk about that and have that common background.
Yeah.
I had a guest on recently who was, her name's Jo. Very interesting person, but she was at a Georgetown University. She's 71, so
great programs.
A while
great
back.
Programs there too.
She did a wild programs I didn't know existed, kind of programs. And she was talking about it. She's like, well, there's opportunities for this fellowship at several universities now, but it was like the Around the World Traveler Fellowship, where some agency pays a lot of money for you to go around the world,
be educated,
be educated in the ways. And so she got into that, and it's like all these things exist around us that we don't even know about as regular. I say as regular people, but they're regular people too.
Yeah, there are tons of opportunities.
And the opportunities are there if you wanted to be in that world. But pretty wild.
The final phase of that 4-year training program. So it's a year at DLI. It's a year and a half at a major university to get an advanced degree.
Okay.
And then a year and a half. It's been truncated to a year, 12 months at what used to be the United States Army Advanced Russian Institute, USARI, in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, in the German Alps, Austrian Alps.
Okay.
And now it's called the George C. Marshall Center for Strategic Studies. So it's a great opportunity. I don't know how many thousands of partners come through there, but it's worth its weight in gold. I mean, it's just a great place to be, a beautiful place to be, but the amount of work and the coordination, cooperation, and brother and sisterhoods that develop there are just phenomenal. It's really a really great place, strategically and diplomatically. It's just it's a great place. So that's the 4-year training program. I got out of that, and they sent me to the 2nd Armored Division.
Check.
So I went back to divisions, but I didn't use my Russian. I kept up on it as much as I could, but you're in the middle of an armored division. The good thing about that is armored divisions don't deploy as much as rapid deployment divisions, like an airborne division or a light infantry division. If you got to send tanks, it's because the other guys got tanks. All right, so
things have escalated.
We prepared for deployments, but we didn't deploy. NTC, they have ultra-focus lens in Korea.
Okay.
That you prepare for different types of deployment, but we didn't. During that 2.5 years that I was there, we never deployed a division. Contingency operations,
Sure.
But you're not going to deploy a full-blown division unless you have something like the Gulf War.
Yeah.
So I had time to keep up on at least on the periphery of my Russian skills. So it kept them honed, and I came out of CGSC at Leavenworth, and they told me I was going to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which was the on-site inspection agency, after school, and they gave me a choice, either DC or Frankfurt. And I said, well, I'm a foreign area specialist. I'm going to a foreign area. So I spent 4 years in Frankfurt. During that time, I also got to deploy into Kosovo. We can talk about that at a later date as well.
Yeah, I would like to get into that. I had some leadership above me. Once I got over to the Wounded Warrior Battalion, one of like the faculty advisors, I guess you would say, that were responsible for recovering service members. He was there and did some very unsavory things, obviously, that needed to be done with mass graves and different things. Yeah. But his stories just and like your head when you got to go see and do that. I don't even compare it to combat. I think it's worse. In a lot of ways, I think I would have handled that more poorly than what I handled combat.
I'm absolutely sure you're correct. I talk to a lot of service members that won't seek evaluation, let alone help on stress disorders, and I tell them, I said, look, you play tough guy, tough girl all you want. I said, but I'm telling you, the human body is not meant to absorb those types of pressures, those types of trauma. It's there. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to show it. That's fine. But I'm telling you, if you've been in a hostile fire zone or a combat situation or seen the aftermath of such, you are affected and you need to go seek help.
Yeah, it's not what you're naturally used to.
It's not a stigma at all. You need to. There's so many that need help.
Here's the problem. The first problem in my because same thing. You know me. My whole thing is trying to get people help and trying to, like, yeah, you're a warrior and you still need help, and that's okay, right? But when the service branches themselves and their hierarchies place a negative stigma on those disorders, well, then your top tier performers are going to look at it as a stigma, period.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think that's changed. I
think it's starting to.
I have seen a change, and just since I've gotten out.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
And I've also seen a change in the VA too, for the positive since I've gotten out. So we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, agreed.
I do believe we are.
Agreed. I think that the negative stigma from the command level, though. So like a guy like me, if my command's stigmatizing something like that, well, then I'm going to shun that thing.
No, absolutely.
Like no tomorrow.
Yep.
So if you're hurt, or you got something going on, you could be my best fucking friend. And if you have something going on, the warrior in me wants to look the other way and say, I can't get close to you because I don't want that to be real to me.
Yep.
And then you run that fucking game too long and you end up in your 30s and 40s sitting in a garage with nobody around you, self-medicating on, alcohol or drugs. And it's because you didn't get help, and you're losing the best years that you have left in your life with your family and with your friends and with yourself, and you did it because of a stigma that people above you that won't be there when you die placed on you or placed on it. And you know me, I'm in the same vein as you. I want that shit to go away.
Better.
But
it has gotten better, and every time either one of us get to be an advocate for making it better, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for the guys out there, let the stigma go for sure.
Go get help.
Go get help.
Talk
to somebody who went to school for many years to learn how to talk to you, because it wasn't us.
It gets better. Get help. It gets better.
100%. And it doesn't matter what era you come from. If you're a Vietnam era warrior and you struggled this long, it's not too late to go get help and savor the last 20 years, 15 years of your life with the people that you love. And if you're Syria or before in the GWAT, go get help. You still have so many years ahead of you to not fuck with suicide and not fuck with abusing your body and not lose time with your kids and lose time with your wife and lose time with the buddies that you came together with and did amazing things with, you lose all of that. And one thing that I know for certain is that your buddies that you lost and those people in your life that you lost along the way that added to these stresses, it is the last thing that they want, to be up there looking at you
struggling,
destroy your fucking life and struggling. They want you to raise them babies up. They want you to take your wife out. They want you to go out and have good, memorable times with your friends and with your family. And they want you to stand up as a patriot for a country that they gave the full fucking measure for. And you sitting in your garage, or you sitting and feeling, I hate to be blunt about it, but it's feeling sorry. Like, woe is me. It's like, it's not woe is you. You signed a contract, and the contract said that you are now the arbiter of United States foreign policy, and you're the strong arm of that. And the long arm, you are the last thing for that. And you knew that. And I'm not saying we don't get affected. We get affected. But the warrior in you has to say, yep, I'm affected. This is how I'm affected. This is how I'm going to get help. This is my action plan. Execute. And if we all start doing that together and reaching out to the people around us who have figured that out and picking their brains, dude, we can turn everything around. We can stop burying people 15 years after they were there, because that's what it's become. Every single person I have come in here and sit in this chair says, I've now lost more people to suicide or to something at home than I lost when I was there. And that's a common thing I continue to hear. And it's not just the Lance Corporals. It's the Lance Corporals. It's the Lieutenant Colonels this year that, Great Marine this year checked out. And it's at all levels. Gunners. Nobody's above the mental side of the game. And that's why we have to get help. We have to say, nope, stigma be damned. It's time to get right.
Roger.
No, sorry.
Sorry.
I want to throw that
good.
in anytime I can.
Good. Yes, absolutely. It needs to be said every time.
So, okay.
Let me hit these last couple of
Yes,
books real
please.
quick,
Yep.
And then maybe that'll give us a segue. These are two books that are really good books on the conflict in Georgia. Since '92, historians will tell you that it started with the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks, the Red Army and the White Army, when they were fighting over the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic back in 1929. But more in my more recent times, these two books, The Guns of August, 2008, and Little War That Shook the World, both of them, excellent reads on the conflict. Obviously dated, and there's been a lot that's happened since then, but good primers, very good primers.
You guys know me. I'm huge into books, and I'm even the guy that likes to turn the pages. I can't be the one on a tablet. I'm going to read all of these books that you were mentioning. Please get these if you are interested. Do your research. Do your own reading.
This one is a message from Ukraine by Volodymyr Zelensky. It was one of the first books he pushed out. It's just a book of thoughts. It's an easy read. It gives you some context as to where he's coming from culturally, socially, and there are a ton of books that have been written since the invasion. All good reads. I've got two or three that I can reference. I'll send you the name, pictures of them, so that you can put them in there if you want. Please. That are great analyses of what's taken place so far. Just good. Last book. This is an older book. It's 1994. It's called A State Within a State. It's about the proliferation of the KGB throughout Russian society, the security forces, to include the patriarchy, the church, the Russian Orthodox Church, everything, medicine, legal, police, every facet of Russian life is infiltrated. That's written by a Russian. Zhenya Albats is a doctor. She got her doctorate from Harvard University. She worked at Chicago Tribune for a while. She has her own podcast. You and I need to talk about that. She would be fascinating if she has time. Her podcast is called Polny Allbots, which means the full Allbots. Allbots is her last name. And you can find it on YouTube. And it's fascinating, the things that she talks about on a regular basis.
Do I have to speak Russian?
No.
Okay.
No, she speaks perfect English. I mean,
Okay.
she's just,
Well, I mean, her podcast, I wasn't sure.
Podcasts, yes, most of them are going to be in Russian.
Okay.
And some of them are going to be in English, but most of them are going to be in Russian because their guests are Russian. Excellent podcast. Excellent podcast. And that book right there, she got access. Yeltsin opened the archives for about 18 months or so. She got full access to them. And as a journalist, as a good researcher, she blew them wide open and wrote that book. That is an excellent
State
book.
Within a State.
State Within a State by Yevgeny Albots.
State Within a State. You know what's interesting about that? I mean, KGB, obviously world-renowned. People know what they do. Well, they might not know what they do. They know what they do. They don't know how they do it. But this thing with Israel and Iran, this tit for tat, and then the Mossad is able to work assets all the way up into a safe house and put a bomb under a blanket. Now, I'm telling you what, right now, that would shake me.
Let alone into pagers and walkie-talkies. I mean,
yeah, I just researched that because I was like trying to make sure. Now, does my phone? No, this was fucking genius. They, a year and a half prior or 2 years prior, set up the company, start developing this stuff, start selling it because the Ayatollah gets word or gets word that all their stuff can be hacked and all their phones can be. So he sends all his people to pagers, and oh, lo and behold, here's the super encrypted pager that you can't break into. And a year and a half later, I'm going to blow your hips off your body. That's insane.
It's
for
genius.
me, it's bravo.
It's genius.
It's bravo, but Jesus. And don't even do them all at once. Do them a little of this day, and when they're visiting the funerals for their buddies, do them that day. I watched them on. I mean, that is insane. And then if you're the Ayatollah, and you find out that people done blown your safe house bed up on your number one guy, what message do you take to heart there? You might not fire that next barrage, or you might.
Yeah, well, it's happening right now as we speak. So,
what, the next barrage?
Yeah. So.
Wonderful. Their barrage or the Israel?
Israel, as far as I know, was as I was coming in, Tehran was still contemplating what the response was going to be.
Well, the tit for tat Israel's been winning that game, and as far as what I've seen now, there may be some stuff I haven't seen, but when they send their munitions in and take out like the Gal that's protecting the nuclear facility and nobody can shoot that down, you're losing that battle.
Yeah.
You know, I've been really impressed with the Iron Dome activity.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because I've always heard that it's this good. It looks that good if you can keep it fed.
Yeah.
So impressed about that. Do you mind going into that a little bit? Just how you feel on it?
I'm here.
Okay.
It's your podcast. If I can add anything to it, I will.
Okay, I just want to make sure we weren't not covering some.
I don't want to disappoint the listeners either. If they want to listen to Georgia, I want to make sure we
I want to cover the rest of Georgia first. Okay, but I do want to get to that because there's things you're going to know about that I 100% have questions on. Let's continue with Georgia and the 30 years that you've been away. Now, I got to get back on track. Safe
like
house.
I said, it was the United Nations Observer Mission in Georgia, UNIMIG. There's a lot of United Nations peacekeeping missions. There's a list of them. There's 100 and some odd different ones. You can look them up online. This one was started in 1992 with just a forward headquarters element that was sent into Tbilisi, and then the UN Security Council developed a 4-part agreement between the between the Georgians and the Abkhaz, and the CIS and United Nations, of which U.S. was part of. So to establish a demilitarized zone, ceasefire, BS on both, and try to repatriate and bring back a few 100,000 Georgians that were displaced from the Civil War. None of which happened. It's certainly not the time that I was there. I don't think any. It still hasn't happened. And it was the Russians vetoed extending the mandate in 2009. They get a chance to do that, and they did, and so UNAMIG went away as of 2009. But from 1992 to 2009, it was a UN peacekeeping or observers mission in Georgia. I arrived in '94. It just wasn't stable enough for the U.S. to put somebody on the ground, and I was the first one on the ground. Subsequently, I think all the way through 2009, I was replaced, on a 6-month basis. I happened to be tapped as the military information officer, the MIO, it's called. It's because of my background and my Russian language capabilities. So I was busy. I was on patrol every day.
That's what my next question would be. What would be a daily battle rhythm for you over there?
I mean, first of all, as one of only 4, and two of the other Russian speakers were doctors, from East Berlin, and so they weren't operating the same way I was operating. I mean, they had a job to do. And
their day job continued, and then they would help.
It was a medical job. All right, so, but they spoke Russian, but it was just me and I believe they had a Russian observer that was with me, and so it was just 2 of us. So we were busy.
But what does that mean? You get up, you eat breakfast at the house, and then you leave and go where?
We start on patrol. I mean, we patrolled the entire sector, and
just 2 of you?
No, there was.
Or you're attached to?
There were about 40 of us in the sector, 23 different nations. Really cool, really, really cool. Koreans, Egyptians, Czechs, Russians, Uruguayans. I mean, just a really cool mix. Cubans. The issue was, I knew what my mandate was. And it was basically the word fish. So it was freedom of movement, to make sure that there was freedom of movement throughout the area. The I was for indigenous personnel, to ensure that we were fostering an environment that might bring back people into the area that they need to be brought in there. The S was for security, and the H was for humanitarian assistance. So that could be anywhere from market surveys, we called them. I'd go to different markets to see what was there, if they were viable markets, if the prices, were being gouged or not. The UN was bringing powdered milk into the area for young mothers, and I would see in the market where the young mothers would be selling the powdered milk, and I'd ask, and she said, "Well, I have enough powdered milk. This is what I get from the UN, and I only need about half of that. So I sell the rest of it so I can buy other foodstuffs for my children." So that's fine, and I understood that. But the rest of the stuff out patrolling, I mean,
you have a weapon? I would hope.
No.
You have no weapon.
The first 3 months on the ground, I must have slapped my right hip
I can bet.
a dozen times a day, going, "What the heck?" Because I told you, every male I ran into had an AK-47, and almost every male I ran into was drunk. So just a disaster.
Is it that they're drinking out of hopelessness, or out of not being able to? Why are they drinking? Or are they all just drunks?
It may be all of the above.
Okay.
They just there wasn't much to be hopeful for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that alcohol was the crutch. Absolutely. So yeah, every day. So battle rhythm. I get up. I get a briefing. I'd give a briefing, and then get in the vehicle and go. And I'd pick a sector, and I'd let the sector commander know where I was going, what I was doing, what I'd report on. And I come back. It would be dark. I'm not patrolling in the dark. I'm the only one out there with headlights on, so
yeah.
not happening.
Mm-hmm.
I got a big UN sticker on the vehicle, but so what?
Might as well be a target.
Yeah. But it's a big white Jeep Cherokee, so
Yeah.
So back to the sector headquarters, I'd go at night, and that's when I would do all my reporting. Now, the cool thing about the reports were I would write them. I would send them to the sector headquarters, the sector commander, and my writing style, my writing skills. There's an Austrian commander and a Polish commander. Great folks. Frank Kolkonowski was the Polish commander. He went on to lead the brigade in NATO, Polish brigade. So he's just a fantastic operator. It would let me write the reports. We'd send them from there up to UN headquarters in Pitsunda, and from there, they would send them to New York. I would go online, and I would see the UN Security Council reports on Georgia.
They're yours, aren't they?
Word for word, what I wrote.
Yeah, because what do they know?
Yeah, just and
they only know what you tell them.
It was very rewarding.
That's cool. No, that's cool.
Was very, very cool coming out of New York and UN Security Council minutes. The reports that I wrote, my name's not anywhere in there, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if I want it to be.
But I wrote that, so it was cool. So
no, that's very cool.
I mean, I'd get on patrol, and I can remember going to they had mandarins. Nobody was tending to them. Occasionally, you'd find a farm that was still operating per se, and I went into an area that was still harvesting mandarins one morning, and people came out of their houses when they saw the UN vehicle. I usually drove. Occasionally, I'd let the Brit drive if he came with me, but most of the other folks didn't have the same driving skills. So I wanted to
be in control of your own destiny.
I wanted to make sure I understood where we had to go and what we had to do and when we had to leave, if we had to leave in a hurry. So it was either occasionally the Brit submariner lieutenant would ride with me, but we pulled up into this one settlement, and I mean, people came out like zombies. I mean, they wanted to talk to us, but they were extremely terrified to talk. They had things to say, but they wouldn't do it. And I found out later it was all slave laborers. They had. I talked to an overlord that was running a mandarin harvesting, production type business, and he'd locked them in. They couldn't go anywhere. Couldn't do anything. It was slave labor. I wrote the report, went forward, and I got back up there as often as I could. And he's one of the guys that threatened me. He says, "Yeah, you go up on those ridge," because I'm on the visibility. There was a ridge line over the top of the settlement. He says, "I can't guarantee your safety up there." I said, "Well, I got a big white Jeep Cherokee. It's broad daylight. It's got UN stickers on the side of it. I got a blue helmet." He says, "I mean, you go up there if you want, but I can't guarantee your safety up there." So,
now, these people, I want you to go through like the opening when Georgia first comes across, and then they go back and they're repelled. You talked about that earlier. What does that look like for these people?
Real quick. I mean, in 92. As I understand it, I don't have all the political footprint per se on what was going on in the Georgian Parliament, but to appease the Abkhazian Parliament in Sukhumi, in the capital of the autonomous Republic of Abkhazia, which is part of the Georgian country. Yep. I mean, like you've got Ajara down in the southwest that borders Turkey, and you got South Ossetia, which is in the west central part. Okay, here, North Ossetia is in Russian.
Yeah.
So now Russia controls both Ossetias, both north and south. They control Abkhazia. They would love to control Ajara, but there's other regions. So the Abkhazian parliament, as part of an appeasement package by Shevardnadze, was basically given an opportunity to declare an independence, and they snapped it up. And it was not what they had hoped in Tbilisi. It's not what they had hoped was going to happen. So as soon as they did that, they understood they were trying to break away. They knew where they were going to go. They were going to align with Russia, and that is a very prestigious area in Georgia. The rest of the stuff is the Caucasus. It's a lot of mountains.
But that was strategically good for Russia as well to be
they
down
had
on the Black
Russia
Sea.
had forces in Gagra and Guru-Uta already, airborne brigade in Guru-Uta. So the Georgian military in '92 was nothing. It was I don't want to say it was ragtag, but it wasn't well managed, wasn't well put together. They had just broken away from the Soviet Union. They had militia. So actually, pitchforks and axes and stuff like that were coming across the border. That's what it was. So Georgia went across the Nguri River right here. That's where I was stationed in Gali. Nguri River first to repel and take back Sukhumi, which was the capital that was the Abkhazian military and militia were in charge of. Got repelled. I forgot how many kilometers they got inside, but they got repelled by the same type of forces that the Abkhazians had, and they did that twice. So what you've got is a Georgian force that comes through the area that I was living, and then they got chased back, and then the Abkhaz forces who don't live in that area, they live up north, came through, and that happened twice. So 4 sets of marauders, you can call them what you want, came through that area. Ergo, my safe house was gutted. I mean, doorknobs gone. Anything of value was completely gone. That's why we didn't have a heating system until I finally worked out a deal with the Russian peacekeepers to put something in there. Sure. Halfway through the most terrible winter that area has had in decades. Not from northern New York, so I had my sleep bag. I was good, but the Cubans were in trouble.
For the people in Gali and these other areas, when the Georgians came across, it was bad. And then when they get repelled, it's not people from their area.
Yeah, no, it's this disaster. The whole area is gutted. The only people that are there are women. So I had some interpreters. All my interpreters were women because I don't speak Georgian, I don't speak Abkhazian, both very old languages. And so when I patrolled, most of the people I talked to spoke Russian.
Were they pro-Russian up north?
Yeah.
Just further north you went, the more pro-Russian they were. Right?
Absolutely. And we talked about this before. Putin's doing the same thing in Ukraine. He's already done it in Donetsk and Luhansk, those regions, and in Zaporizhia, and in Crimea as well. It happened the same way in Georgia, in Abkhazia. All right. Sochi's just across where they had the Olympics. It's just across the border there. People, not a lot of economic opportunity, especially between 92 and 94, because war broke out. Those hotels along the Black Sea, nobody's in them, all right, because the conflict is raging. All right, so most of the adult workforce has to go into Russia to work, because like I say, Sochi's still Sochi. I mean, it's still got plenty of work. So a lot of the Georgian workforce, the Abkhazian Georgian workforce, goes across the border every day to go to work. Same thing happens in Luhansk, in Donetsk, Zaporizhia. All right, so what's the Kremlin do? What's Putin do? He says, hey, what are you waiting in line for? You're late for work. Okay? Let me give you a passport. Let me give you a Russian passport. You can keep your Georgian passport. You can keep your Ukrainian passport. Here's a Russian passport. Just show the Podgranichnik, the border guard, your Russian passport. Boom. Go walk right through. No line. Boom. You're good. All right. All right. Fine. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to stand in line. 100%. Boom. They do that. What's that do? That makes them all subjects of the Russian Federation. So I can use that to say I'm going in to protect 50,000 Russian citizens because they all got Russian passports.
Imagine that.
All right, same thing's happening in Ukraine.
Same thing.
It's part of the Kremlin playbook.
Yeah.
It's what they do when they get into an area.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it firsthand in Georgia back in 94. So they haven't changed their modus operandi at all.
Yeah. I'm not even saying it's a bad one. I mean, as far it's bad, but in states
it's good
bad,
for a
but
lot of reasons.
It's good. No, I'm just saying it's good strategically.
Yes.
It's like the pager thing. You're thinking outside the box a little bit and say, "Oh no, these are my citizens. Look, they have passports. They have drivers. They work here.
Yeah. So
they want to be us."
When those numbers pop up in Ukraine, you know that there's 100,000 Russian citizens. Throw the penalty flag. All right. There's only one reason why they're Russian citizens.
We talked about we've talked about that. But I don't know. It worked. It worked then. It's working now.
It'll work in the future too. Yeah, so I mean, that was it. I get up in the morning,
battle rhythm.
do the briefings. I might have some information requirements that came from New York or sector headquarters or even mission headquarters in Pitsunda. They're saying, you need to go to the
some
markets
kind of
today. You need to go to the markets today, find out what's going on. Now we heard there was an issue at this farm. In the north, we need you to go up there. We've got a sighting of military equipment that's not authorized to be in this region. We need you to go check it out. So that's the tank story we talked about earlier.
More unsettling for most people than it seemed to be for you.
It was fairly unsettling for me too, but I mean, it was like. Nothing else I got it. I got to deal with it. There's nothing else I can do with it. But they take a MTLB, which is a tracked vehicle, personnel carrier. But there's a lot of variants, communication variants, infantry fighting vehicle variants. But it's an old vehicle. And if it was just a transport vehicle, it was allowed to be in certain areas. They would mount an anti-aircraft gun on it, some sort of a ZSU, on top of it, and put it on the border of the village, and face the gun into the village, so just to intimidate. So, so we'd see something like that, we'd have to take notes. It was before 94. It was before cameras. All right.
Well, the question then becomes like
before phones, anyways. With
then
cameras.
You put that in communications into a report.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're not doing anything. You're not like telling them to stop or anything, right?
Oh, yeah, you definitely. Part of your mandate is to let them know that they're in violation of the agreement. Absolutely.
And they just they respect the authority of the UN.
No, they ignored us.
Oh, okay.
But that's not the UN's fault. It's just that they're at war. That's a soldier. He's got his mission. I mean, you go tell it to the mountain. All right, because I'm not changing the elevation of this gun just because you're standing here. But I will tell you that I had a little 120 millimeter camera, a disposable camera. I kept one in the glove compartment. Worse than a weapon.
Yeah, I bet.
Get you killed
I bet.
before an M16 would get you killed. You took the picture of something wrong, and I can remember coming up. I found 3 Georgians that were captured by the Abkhaz militia, and I said I talked to the militia leader and said I'm taking pictures of all 3 of them. We really wish you wouldn't do that. And I said I'm definitely taking pictures of him. I mean. There's a good chance these guys aren't going to wake up tomorrow morning. I'm taking pictures of them. So, wrong place, wrong time. This guy was enough of a diplomat, enough of a politician, enough of appointed, person in the militia, and senior enough that he understood that he wasn't going to screw with a UN guy, let alone an American. You're not taking out that. You are not taking out this guy. So yeah, but that camera gets you killed quicker than having an M16 on your shoulder. But I put one in every vehicle, and I had to take them out of some because there were some that were just didn't understand what kind of a instrument that was, and it definitely could have put them in some extremely compromising positions. So I took them out of some of the vehicles, and only certain vehicles carried them. I had trouble finding partners because I went to the places that I was supposed to go to. I flipped over rocks. There were folks in the mission that wouldn't drive the vehicle because if something happened to the vehicle, they thought their salary would be impacted. So they said, no, I left my driver's license at home. The Cubans never drove. But there were other countries as well. My two roommates never drove.
Now, were they supposed to be traveling with you every day, or did they?
The Cubans never did.
Oh.
But I always had at least one, sometimes two other sector members with me, and then one interpreter, because I'd be crossing into Georgian-speaking areas and Abkhazian-speaking areas. So I normally had to take, I had Abkhazian interpreters, but normally they only spoke Abkhazian. So I take a Georgian interpreter with me, a woman. I mean, there's no male combatant age males in the area. So I take a Georgian with me because she spoke both languages. Same thing happened in Kosovo. All right, why are you bringing a Kosovar in here? Why are you bringing an Albanian in here? Because your Serb doesn't speak Albanian.
Yeah.
All right, I only got one extra seat. All right, I got 4 seats in the Humvee. All right, and I only got one for a Terp. So it's going to be somebody that can speak both languages.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm in Ochimchura, where the Russian Black Sea Fleet is being relocated as we speak.
Yeah.
And I'm up on the high ground overlooking the Black Sea, and I see a tracked vehicle that's not supposed to be in the area. So I'm paralleling him on another ridge, and I'm racing him down a little goat trail to get to the main road, because if he gets on the main road, he's not going to outrun me, but there's a chance I lose him. So I'm trying to get down there before he does. I get down to the bottom of the ridge road, and an old man jumps out of, he had a walkie-talkie, so somebody was talking to him. Jumps out of nowhere. I almost hit him, and he stops me. Just long enough for 2 other militia vehicles to come up behind me. Just weapons, just full blow right in the front, like a felony stop. And a guy comes out with a tie, well-dressed guy, obviously in charge. And there's 3 of us in the car. I've got an interpreter, and I've got another observer with me. And we're talking in Russian, and he says, "What are you doing here?" And I said, I have a mission. I have freedom of movement. I'm here. I saw a vehicle that I thought was a violation of the mandate, so I'm investigating. I can be here. He says, "You American?" I said, "Yes," because on one's shoulder you wear the American flag. And he said, "Okay." He says, "How about this guy?" And I say, "On Jordan." He's Jordanian. You're Jordanian major. And all I can hear is click, 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 click. And he thought I said on Gruzin he's a Georgian. Okay, but I mean I said it properly. Between my pronunciation and his hearing of Russian, it was easily, and especially the guys with the AK-47s or whatever else they had, they understood that, because he was dark complected. He had a 5 o'clock shadow. He was Jordanian. I mean, he looked a little Russian or a little Georgian. And so they thought I had a Georgian. They thought so that I was spying on the Abkhaz military sector. And so I said, "Stop! All right, look, I can show you. He can show you his ID. He's Jordanian. Okay, okay, I understand. But they're still pissed off that we're there." And so he says, You married? Yep. He says, you have kids? I said, are you threatening me? I just need to understand your posture. Are you threatening me right now? Oh, no. I'm not threatening you. I just need you to understand that if you come in here again and you bring a Georgian with you, we're not asking questions. We'll tow the bullet-ridden vehicle out to the main road so that they can find you. I said, but that's what but I'm letting you know where I'm coming from right now. And she said, who's that in the back? I said, that's my interpreter, Peter Vocik. He said, is she Georgian? Yeah, she's Georgian. I said, but look, I can't. I gotta have a bilingual, trilingual speaker, English, Georgian, and Abkhazian. Your Abkhazian interpreters don't speak Georgian. So yes, she's with me, and she speaks all three languages. He said, it's my enemy. You are a legitimate target. You bring my enemy into this area again. Got it. Understand. Okay. All right. So we got out from underneath that rock, but that just amplifies that I had difficulty finding partners every morning.
I bet you did.
There was a Czech brigadier that you had to be a major to be in the sector. So he took a reduction in rank to be part of the mission. Great big guy. And he would ride shotgun for me. The Brit submariner would ride shotgun for me. I had a really good Egyptian officer, captain, that would ride shotgun with me. But I mean, there might have been, out of 40, there might have been 4. Mm-hmm. I took a partner from another country that exports military officers to UN missions. You got to have them. You got to fill those roles, and there are certain countries that's their cash crop, is they send military officers to support the UN. You got to have them. God love them. You got to have them. For the most part, not warriors. I got one with me. He's usually in the supply room. Runs a sparkling supply room. I mean, just runs. Got it going on. But he finally says, "Hey, I need to go out on patrol." Okay, out we go. I get surrounded by the Abkhaz militia. I mean, and there are just celebratory or whatever rounds going off, left, right, and center. My partner's in the vehicle. And I get him to radio back to headquarters to say, hey, I need to send the QRF, the Russian QRF airborne brigade, to send a BTR 60 down here to help bail me out, because it's getting untenable. And I don't. The chances they're going to kill an American, I think, are slim, but somebody else could get hurt really, really quickly and really badly. So I need assistance. As soon as the next shots were fired, all I hear is tires squealing. This guy, my partner, hauls out with the vehicle. Yep, I'm gone. I'm going back to headquarters.
He left you there.
Yeah, he left me there.
Oh, shame on him.
Yeah, no, he didn't leave the supply room the rest of the time I was there. I said, "You're not going out. Are you kidding me?" And the Russians sent a lieutenant with patrol. He was sitting on top of the BTR 60 when he arrived, and he let off a couple of rounds. And as soon as they saw the Russians coming, they dispersed. But that was just one of those stories.
That was the Russians frightened him, huh?
Yeah, because I mean we can get into that a little bit too. But the CIS was one of the 4 signatories to the agreement, and there's no way that you put in the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States, was all Russian forces, so you don't put Russian forces in charge of their own backyard and stuff like that. I mean, I was the liaison to the Russian airborne brigade that was right across the street from the headquarters, so I saw them every day. Good people, but their mission was keeping the peace per se. It wasn't peacekeeping. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things we get into, and we don't have to. But we talk about the tank incident real quick, if you want to.
Yeah, please.
It's just because it's just one of those vignettes.
That was on the Angori?
Nguri River, yes.
Nguri River, yeah.
So I'm on the line of demarcation. I'm on one side of a blown out bridge, and there's a high ground behind me because I'm near the water where the bridge comes across, and there's high ground on the other side of me. And I'm getting ready to have whatever is in my brown sack from the housekeeper in my safe house, and it's probably maybe a piece of meat, certainly a couple of eggs, and some cheese and a hunk of bread. Normally it was cheese, egg, and bread. And I hear rumbling behind me. I mean, the ground shakes. If you're not a tanker, and you don't understand how big and how much they weigh. If it's the only vehicle that's operating in the area, you know it's coming. And I look over my shoulder, and it's a T-72. And he's got the main gun pointed across the river, out right over the top of me. And the commander pops out. It's a little Abkhazian commander. And they're this guy was petite. Most of them are smaller in size than we are. And he pops out and he sees who I am, and he sees I'm about ready to have lunch. So he grabs whatever mystery meat he's got in his little kit, and he comes down, and on the hood of the car we start having lunch, and we start talking about it. I start talking about his tank and his mission around the area, and all of a sudden the ground starts shaking again. And I said, "You got another one coming?" He said, "No." I said, and I see movement over on the other side of the river, and I said, "Dang, there's another tank coming." I said, I gotta go.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm not getting in between two tanks.
Yeah.
I got a Jeep Cherokee. I said, "Sit still, Commander. Sit still. Sit still." I said, "I gotta go." He says, "Listen, what kind of tank have I had?" He says, "You got a T-72. I said, "What kind of tank is that?" I said, "It's a T-64, I think. T-62 maybe, but I think it's a T-64. He says, "You think he can see me?" I said, "I know you can see me. You're profiled up on the ridge right there." He says, "I can see him. Do you think he knows what kind of tank I got?" He says, "Yeah, he can see that you get a T-72. He says, "You think he knows what the standoff distance is between his tank and my tank?" I said, "He says he absolutely does. He will not come into my range, and he can't hit me from that distance. So he could fire around, but it's not coming close to the car." Okay? All right? I understand that you don't want a round fired in your direction. I got that. But he's going to sit up there. All right? This is a cat and mouse thing. He's going to sit up there. I'm going to sit up here. He's not coming in my range, and I've got a greater range than he does, probably by 500 meters. All right? He knows that. So he's just going to sit out of my range. He can't hit us. And he's not going to get close enough for me to hit him. So just sit still. I said,
"Just relax."
I just finished lunch, and I packed up and got out of there.
Yeah.
It's just one of those.
I might want to try to stay cool for a minute to save face, and then I'm leaving anyway.
Yeah. So, but he was right. Guns were pointed in each other's directions, like OK Corral. But I mean, nobody was shooting anybody. But that's just a great foreign area officer vignette.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
it's a great story.
It's a great experience.
Right on. Now, how did you close that out? So you got ripped out with another UN observer after 6 months, you said?
Yep, after 6 months.
What does that look like? What's your guys' ripped toe look like?
One-on-one.
Yeah.
The guy that replaced me had the advantage of reading all my reports and knowing on the ground what was going on. And so he was prepared.
He was spun up all the way, yeah.
Yep. And we sent quality people. A lot of nations sent quality people. Most of the now NATO countries that sent quality people were reliable, great observers, great reporters, great writers, just great warriors.
Yeah.
That's 20% of the mission, maybe. The other 80% is our folks that are needed to fill out the mission, and they come from all different nations, and you got to have them. You got to have them. I remember, I don't know if I can still do a lot of them, but I remember I learned how to say good morning and how are you in 20 different languages.
Holy shit.
Because you know, they would. I would see them every morning, you know, and a lot of them spoke English or Russian, but I tried to,
No, that's cool.
That's
cool.
Selamat pagi, apa kabar, which is good morning and how are you in Indonesian, because we had some Indonesian. But they lost over the course of the 17 years that UNAMIG was in place. They lost, how many people? I think they lost 14 observers that were killed right after 9/11. So it didn't get a lot of airplay. The month after 9/11, October, it's when some UN observers were taken hostage, and it was shown on the news. A helicopter got taken out, still unknown by whom. That they lost 8 of the of the number of observers that they in that mission that they in one downing. Yeah, so it's a dangerous mission. I mean, you can think of it as a UN mission that's not in harm's way, but almost every UN mission that's on the ground right now is there for a reason, and it's because there are 2 warring factions and people are suffering, and you're a target. Sometimes in certain areas you're a legitimate target. If you are standing in the way of one side, making any advances at all, whether it's socio-economic advances or if it's tactical military advances on the ground, you're going to get taken out. And it's going to
send. Is that what happened with the people that were taken out?
I'm guessing, and I don't know.
Okay.
I'm guessing that the helicopter may have been flying over an area that, like some of the areas in Bosnia where they saw mass graves. They may have seen something that they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And the other folks, like I said, the Russians would not tell anybody where their mines were, and every riverbed was mined on both sides. So eventually, by trial and error, paths were made, and they didn't put any new mines out. So if you found a path across the Nguri, I held my breath the whole time I was driving across the river in the riverbed, because he could have put a new mine down there, and who knows. But some of the observers were killed in mine explosions.
Yeah. Did they blow all the bridges?
Yes. I never saw a bridge intact.
Okay.
I did see one of the major bridges coming from Pitsunda, because about once a month I would go up to Sochi to pick up more members of the mission. And buy some supplies if I could in Sochi. And the Russians had put up a pontoon bridge across one of the blown out bridges, and that's the only one I saw.
Gotcha. It makes sense that they would do that.
I sent you 2 pictures last week. Yeah, they may be worth noting. It was Sierra 12, which was a checkpoint on the Nguri River. The first picture is me in 1994 talking with the Abkhaz militiaman right at the north end of the checkpoint, because the south end is in Georgia. It's manned by different forces. And then someone just sent me a picture of 2 weeks ago of the same checkpoint. So you've got 30 years apart. You got the same picture. You can tell by the background, the mountains in the background, and the pillars of the bridge, that it's the same exact spot. It's a cool picture.
That's cool.
Looking together at both of them.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. We're at 2 hours.
Wow.
But I do want to cover one.
Go ahead.
As far as Israel goes, with the wars, the things that they're fighting, the different factions, seemingly all controlled by Iran, and now there's that tit for tat for Iran. Does this in your mind, does this war open up?
It almost has to, unfortunately. I don't know how wide, but Tehran's definitely going to respond, and it's going to be a measured response.
See,
But yes.
measured to me is like a loose term right now, because the last time it happened, there might have been, and I know it doesn't matter how much damage you take, you're still firing a weapon at another country that doesn't want you to do that and that has the ability to defend themselves. But the last time they fired, all of the drones and the rockets and the things that they fired, there was, I would call it measured. I would say it was measured. It was a strike. It was a
Yes.
crucial and a critical strike, and a strike that showed the reach that they had. But then this has happened again now. And so at what point do you start ratcheting up that measured response? And at what point does that response throw Iran and Israel all in at each other?
I don't think we get there.
Okay.
I hope we don't get there. I mean, the regime in Tehran understands its vulnerabilities. Okay, as much of a statement that they would like to make against Israel, they know what forces are arrayed against them. I don't think they're going to risk the regime over some. I mean, this is the only thing they would risk the regime over. But I don't think they're going to do. I would be very surprised if it escalated to that extent. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Right.
You've got tanks lined up on the Lebanese border,
Yeah.
IDF tanks lined up, ready to go in, and for a buffer zone. Is that what they want to achieve for security purposes?
You talking about Israel?
Yes, I mean Israel has a right to defend itself.
For sure.
Absolutely. I don't know. My gut feeling, as a internationalist, as someone that tries to stay up on as many crises as you can. I don't see, again, waking up and having to do a math problem every morning. I don't see the Ayatollah making a decision that really puts the regime at risk.
Okay. Yeah, the other side's in just this completely opposite position where everybody's blowing up around you. Everybody's seemingly against you. You don't even seemingly have overwhelming support from Chapter 3 allies or... That's the side I'm concerned about.
I'm counting on Israel also waking up every morning and doing a math problem and understanding that security is number one. I got that, but their responses have to be measured as well.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sit back here and criticize the way they conducted the war in Gaza.
Sure.
I'm absolutely sure it's not the way we would have conducted the same types of operations, but we're not in that type of environment. So,
right. No, right. It's a totally different geographical situation.
Yeah.
We're separated by blessings.
I'm not condoning them. If you ask me, I don't think that's the way we would have conducted warfare. But that's what's happening.
Well, I would say that after 9/11, you had the Afghanistan thing, and then you had a shock and awe campaign in Iraq that was pretty brutal. Now, was it like that? Maybe not.
It was pretty precise.
With the munitions we were dealing with at the time. I'm not saying it wasn't, but nobody was telling the United States how or where they could drop bombs or how big they could be.
No, but we also didn't kill
No,
450,000 civilians either.
Granted, yeah, which is better. Yeah, it's war's a fickle bitch.
There's no winners.
It's not. You grow up in the Marine Corps from boot camp to SOI, and it says that on every pillar. Quotes like that. only the dead see the end of war, and there are no winners in war. And as a young guy, you're kind of motivated by that.
Yes. Slap it as you walk by.
Yep, boom. No winners of war, boys. We're in this for the long haul, and you don't think about the rest of your life at 18 or 20, or you don't think about the rest of the lives of the people maybe you're going to hunt, and the fact that, and I'm not sympathizing that we need a strong military. We need these guys ready, and we need instant obedience to orders, and speed and violence action. We need all of that, and maybe that's why it's people like you that enforce policy and are at the upper echelons of making wise decisions when it comes to that. And 18-year-olds like me fighting a war just need to go fight the war. But when you start to get older, if you stay in that vein, you start to see what I've started to see was like, I think General Nicholson, I had him on, a 3-star general, a couple months ago. He was a great guest, but you start to see things. You start to see some repeating things, and it's like, well, are these lessons recorded or lessons learned? Because we're real good at recording them, but then the same shit seems to be on repeat every 25 or 30 years, maybe just with a different piece of property in a different country. Always the same 3 big ones, but then the little ones kind of rotate on, all right, where are we going this time? And how's the economy going to grow this time? And you start to realize, maybe too late, but I don't know. I think that the way the 18 to 25-year-old kid looks at war drastically different than the way that a 65-year-old policymaker looks at war and diplomacy. So, and not that it's bad, just like you said, we need those people all along the way. It only works because there are all these people. But when you grow out of one group and start to grow into the next one, it becomes almost a humbling, I understand. Doesn't mean I like it kind of a situation. So,
well, you need folks that have been operators and now maybe are politicians or diplomats to understand just exactly the cost of those decisions,
the
those math problems
that
have to be solved every morning.
Yeah, totally agree.
Now, I'm convinced that the lessons learned that are coming out of the European theater right now and the Russian aggression in Europe are huge. Not only tactically on how war is being waged, the articles that I'm reading on drone warfare, on the massive changes in maneuvering armies because of the weapon systems that are arrayed against large forces. I really do think, like to your point, that it's cyclical. I do think that it's going to be a long time before we see a major aggression in Europe again.
Yeah.
Once this is solved, and
just rock the whole region.
Yeah, it's just. There's going to be countries in Europe that are going to separate themselves, and they already are. And their peers, but not to be belligerent about it. Is that to say that in 100 years the landscape could change? Yeah,
sure,
it could, absolutely. But if we're on top of it, if NATO develops into the type of organization that it continues to develop into, then we'll have peace in Europe. And aggression will be something that is written about in history books.
Yeah, God willing. All right, dude.
Hey, man, I'm sorry we took so long.
Don't be sorry. I love this. The longer that I'm learning, man.
You talk to me, I'll answer questions.
This isn't my war. And I'm a junkie. I mean, I don't know. War turned me into a junkie for certain things, but
that was a really unique.
It is, and a lot of people don't know about it. I mean, a lot of people, I assume, know about it that were around and that are a bit older than I am and that seen that. But a lot of my generations are talking about this, and they're not talking about the would it be consequences? They're not talking about the contextual history of why we are where we are today and why certain factions and countries are warring with each other today. And the guy like me that's 38 was 8 years old when you were doing this mess. doesn't have any idea that this even happened.
No, so many
you
people
don't know.
So many people don't know. That
But it contextually plays into the geopolitical situation that we are sitting in right now. So it's important to know about it. So don't ever apologize. There's no going long on my shit. We go the next 3 hours. I like to break it up a little more because you have so much different stuff. But no, thank you for coming on again. I only have a few returning guests to the show, and you're one of my favorite people to have in the chair.
I love doing it too, and sharing the experiences, and hopefully, making other folks that are listening feel better about the service that they provided in similar environments. So
absolutely,
I mean. We can. Last year was the 40th anniversary of Operation Urgent Fury.
Grenada.
There were 19 folks that were killed. A lot of special operators. So, I'd love to come back and talk to you about that sometime as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely. And your trip back, right?
Yeah, we went back last year in October for the 40th anniversary. It was a big memorial type celebration. A handful of VIPs. I took 9 paratroopers down with their spouses and spent about anywhere from 9 to 11 days on the island again. Went through the whole areas that we patrolled while we were down there in 1983. Lots of things have changed geopolitically. Lots of things have changed. They're much more aligned with Russia now than they were before. They're very much aligned with the Chinese. A lot of Chinese businessmen on the island, so it's. I mean, the U.S. doesn't support Grenada like it did in 1983 with foreign aid, so we don't have the leverage that we used to. So it was obvious when we were down there as well. But I've got a handful of little vignettes that I can share with you if you decide you got room to squeeze me in again.
Oh, dude, I always have room. Yeah, we'll set it up. I would like to talk about that specifically in and of itself, though.
Yeah.
On a longer forum than mixing it right now. I think they both rate the time spent, and I want to make sure that I'm spun up before I come to that one and do that one. But thank you, and until next time, my
pleasure.
We'll continue to talk offline.
Join the VFW and American Legion.
Hey, Post 9983 out on the beach, Holly Ridge. Shout out right there. We got a great mixture of white beards and colored beards alike. So if you still got color in your beard, it's not a place that you don't want to be. You come out and get to rub shoulders with national treasures, as far as I'm concerned. The people that make it work, from the MARSOC community and the young Marine Corps, all the way up into Grenada vets, and we actually have a Coast Guard vet that transported Japanese prisoners in World War II. That still sits up on a bar stool and talks to the younger guys about past days. So if you find it in your heart, you want to be around like-minded individuals, get out there. If you want to support like-minded individuals, you want to support critical operators, make sure you're looking into the Honor Foundation. And big shout out to all of the volunteers like Rick that volunteer their time to help transition these warriors in a way that is meaningful and successful. The 2% of the nation that joins the military is my whole world, and my whole all of my support and my platforms go to them. And then the small percentage of that become critical skills operators and put it on the line. Our best people in the nation deserve our best, and that's what the Honor Foundation has become. So until next time, guys, choices, not chances. Make sure you're sharing this out. Every time you guys share this out, algorithmically, it helps the show get seen by a wider audience. And so if this information resonates with you, I just ask that one simple thing. Share it out to your community, share it out to your circle, and we can all get better together. Until next time, guys, this is Choices, Not Chances, signing off.